Welcome to the Behind the Girl Boss podcast, where every woman's journey takes center stage. Join us in this safe space as we explore the ins and outs of business, career, mental health, the music industry, and more. Whether you're a go-getter or a dream chaser, we've got stories for you. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok for an exclusive backstage pass. Get ready to be inspired, empowered, and entertained. Welcome to the ride. Hey everyone, what is up and welcome back to the podcast. I hope you guys are excited for this episode because I know I am. As you can see again, there's no video for the intro. I'm so sorry. I've literally been a mess, but I've been doing so much work lately because I'm going on a trip to New York in like 3 weeks. And in order for me to not have to work on the trip, I have to kind of like batch everything and get everything like done before then. So I've just been working a lot, but I want this episode to go up, so we're going to do an intro without my face in it, but the actual episode is video, so you're good. You're good. But I'm really excited for this episode, but before we get into it, I want to do our little mantra of the day, mantra of the episode, and today's mantra is, sometimes you're all you have, and sometimes that's all you need. I read this and I was like, you know what, that's good. I mean, I have great people around me, but sometimes you kind of forget that at the end of the day, like the only person you ever need is yourself. And I think this reminds me that I have to like love myself and appreciate myself and just treat myself nicely. So I saw this and I was like, this is the mantra that I want to use. So sometimes you're all you have, and sometimes that's all you need. Love it. So good. But yeah, today on the podcast, we have Sarah. Sarah is a podcast host. She's also a full-time content creator at Coach, and she's just a really fun person. Sarah is also a bisexual gal like myself, and we spoke all about sexuality, discovering your sexuality, embracing your sexuality. We spoke about what it's like to be a full-time content creator for Coach and what that really entails. And we also spoke about what it's like hosting a podcast with your best friend. She's the co-host of the podcast, Completely Fucking Clueless. And we had such a great, fun conversation. I really enjoyed it, and I think you guys will as well. So if you're into talks about sexuality, if you're into talks about content creation, working for Coach, having a podcast, all those things, this episode is for you, and just keep on listening. Hey everyone, what's up? And welcome back to the podcast. So today we have Sarah with us. So hi, Sarah.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes, I'm so excited. Do you want to start off by telling us a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So, hi everyone. My name is Sarah Alice Liddy. I'm 25 years old, soon to be 26. I only have a couple more months left of the quarter life crisis. I am from New York City, and what I do, I don't really know how to define what I do all the time because I would say like I'm a content creator, podcaster, and performer. A little bit of a bunch of different entertainment things.
hmm No, I love that.
Yeah.
I'm excited to dive into that with you. But before we do that, I
Yeah.
like to do a little hot seat segment, kind of just break the ice
Okay.
and know little fun facts. Um,
Yeah.
so you said you live in New York right now, but if you could
Yeah.
pick up and move anywhere, where would it be?
Ooh, this is such a good question. Probably somewhere in Europe, like Italy or London, I think would
hmm
be really fun, especially London because it's so similar to New York, but like closer to a bunch of cool countries that you could like travel to for the weekend.
Yeah, I've never been to London, but it's on my bucket list, and I really want to go by the end of the year, so I'm hoping.
Yeah, I love London. I actually, fun fact about me is I lived in London for
Okay.
like 4 years of my life when I was like a little kid. I think my parents moved there like 6 months after having me. So,
Okay. We love that.
yeah, yeah.
The next one is, do you have a life mantra or motto that you live by?
That's a good one. You know what? I don't really think I do. Lately, I've been kind of living by like just doing me, especially like in the wake
hmm
of the new year and everybody's setting like these like really intense goals and like there's so much
Yeah.
pressure. I've actually just decided to just like stay away from the goal setting, at least for now, and just like be present in the new year.
hmm No, I feel that. I mean, I always make goals,
Yeah.
but then there is a thing where it's like sometimes I make like these like really extreme goals and then I try so hard to reach them and I don't like enjoy the process type of thing. So I'm like, I made goals, but I'm like, I'm not going to be so hard on myself this year.
Yeah, no, I get that 100%. I feel like I was just like, I want to do something different. Like, let me not make any goals yet, try and be a little bit more just like in the moment because I feel you. Like, I do the same thing. I like, will see everybody making all these like really big, like, I call them like luxurious, like yummy goals. And then I'm like, oh my God, it's like too much. It won't happen in like, a week.
Yeah, no, 100%. And then the last one is who is a celebrity or
Yeah.
creator that always keeps you inspired?
Ooh, this is a good one. You know what? I'm gonna say, because I know you know her too, Tess Barkley,
Mm-hmm.
for right now. I feel like she is just like so inspiring in what she does. And I love watching her content. I feel like I always learn something new from her whenever I'm watching her stuff.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. Okay, so as someone who does share a lot of their life online through like video
Yeah.
content, photos, everything like that, what is something that you do for fun that many people may not know that you actually do?
Ooh, this is hard. My partner always tells me I need to have more like hobbies because I tend to monetize like everything I do or try
Mm-hmm.
and attempt to monetize it. I guess like maybe this isn't like an activity, like a hobby or an activity, but I do love just like spending time with my friends and, going to explore new restaurants in the city. Like that is like
Yes.
so fun to me. And usually I like, as much as I want to record it and put it online, I'm usually like too caught up in the moment, had a couple drinks that I just don't
Mm-hmm.
and record anything. So I do really enjoy that.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
And growing up, did you always envision or see yourself in this like digital media space, or did you have a different route in mind?
I honestly had a very different route in mind. I more
Okay.
saw myself on stage, like,
Mm-hmm.
theater. My dream since I was little was to be on Broadway. And so I
Yeah.
grew up as an artist, training in theater, went to school for theater. And then, sort of, when the pandemic hit, and I mean, I've always loved social media and pop
Yeah.
culture. It's been a huge, I like literally started watching The Housewives when I was like in middle school, wasn't supposed to, and all of that stuff. So, really once the pandemic happened is where I kind of shifted and saw the opportunities that could be in like the digital and social media world.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
when did you kind of start posting online and what platform did you start posting on first?
I started with, I mean, back in the day, I started on
Mm-hmm.
Instagram when like Instagram came out, but like actually taking it seriously
Mm-hmm.
was TikTok. I started posting in November of 2022, which was a little
Okay.
bit late. Yeah, because I had kind of sworn off TikTok when everybody
Oh, me
started getting
too.
into it. Yeah, I was like, I do not need another social
Mm-hmm.
media app to like consume my time and my energy. Like, absolutely not. I used to like watch like YouTube like compilations of like Charlie D'Amelio and Addison Rae like doing their dances on YouTube because I didn't have
Mm-hmm.
TikTok. But yeah, started with TikTok in November 2022, like taking it seriously or more
Mm-hmm.
seriously.
And how would you say has your content changed from your first post to now?
Wow, that's such a good question because so much. I actually have my first account like on TikTok. You can still go see it. It's called at Sal the Theater Gal because I started posting a lot of content in the beginning about
Mm-hmm.
theater and like sizeism in theater and what it's like to be a plus size actress in theater.
Yeah.
And then I moved forward. And then, like, as much as I loved that, I was like, I think I want to be like different online. Like, I don't think I want to be the theater girl online.
Mm-hmm.
So I shifted towards posting about the podcast that I have with one of my friends. And then last year, honestly, around this time, was like, I want to take step forwards like every month to really start making my own content for me. And now I'm like obsessed with making like content for myself.
Yeah. And on TikTok, you currently have over 13,000 followers. How did this kind of happen? Was it like a slow, gradual growth? Did you have a viral video?
I totally think it was a slow growth for me. It still is. It's interesting. I feel like every week I gain like 100 followers, which
Mm-hmm.
is really interesting. I feel like it's been that way for me since like September. I think I started the growth with like reaching the plus size community. I do think that on TikTok, like that's really important. I know when I see somebody who is plus size talking about this community, like I am supporting them. So I
Yeah.
think that is where I saw like initial growth. And then lately I've been wanting to like kind of take myself, like not maybe focus as much on like being plus size, not focus on so much of like theater and like I truly love like those comfort and lifestyle like TikTokers and YouTubers. And I was like, how can I approach this world and how can I possibly be that for somebody? And
Yeah.
lately I've been finding that in just sharing like my 9 to 5, like corporate life, commuting around New York and things like that.
hmm And how do you go about like planning your content? Do you have like, for me, I'm the type of person that like has a plan and I'm like, okay, like
Yeah.
this week I'm gonna post this, that, and the other. Is yours more like spontaneous? You're like, okay, I'm gonna wake up and vlog today, or is it more planned out?
It's definitely spontaneous. Like I wish I could be more like
hmm
planned because sometimes like I go weeks where I'm posting like 5 videos and like and the other like three. I usually like no matter what I'm posting around 3 videos a week. I really am like that is like where I want to hit my minimum. But usually like I know on the days where I'm like going into the office for my job, which now in February they're making us go in twice a week every week. So I'll definitely be doing more of my like
hmm
commuting vlogs. But it's just like easy content for me to get because like I'm going to work. I'm like, this is easy for me to film. Like I already have to go there. So I usually
Yeah.
know on those days, like I am going to be filming. And then usually like if I know I have some like, important events coming up or things that I think people will be interested in watching, I'm like, I'm definitely going to film that.
Yeah.
But I find it hard to film like my work from home life because it is so boring. I'm like, I don't know how to make this interesting to anybody. like,
Yeah, no, I feel that. Yeah, working for myself and working from home, I'm like, I want to like show more of that, but I need to find a way where it's not just me sitting at my desk, then going to my kitchen, then sitting back at my desk because that's literally all I do. So I'm trying to like
right.
watch more people that work from home and like see what they do
Mm.
because it is boring after a while, like doing the same things over and over.
Yeah, I that is a really great tip and like something that I started doing because another creator, she is in like the queer space a lot, is her name Sydney Kaysen. And something that I noticed that she would do in her vlogs is she would put timestamps. And I was like, okay, like this is
Mm-hmm.
really interesting. And I've been loving it, like incorporating that into things that may not be as like interesting, but like all of a sudden like adding the timestamp was like kind of
Can add
drawing
something,
in a
yeah.
little bit. Yeah, 100%, 100%.
Yeah. And talking about work, if we go back a
Mhm.
little bit, did you go to university and what did you study there?
Yes, I went to Elon University. I actually took a gap year before I went to school,
Okay.
so I was a year older than my peers. But yes, I went to Elon University and I got my degree in music theater. I got a BFA.
Okay, cool. And during
Yeah.
your time in school, did you do any internships?
No, no, false. That is actually false. Yes, I did. I worked at a Broadway production company.
Okay. And do you think
Yeah.
working internships, because there's always like this thing where like people are like, if you work internships, it's easier to get a job. And then people are like, no, that's
Yeah.
not true. So what, from someone that did have an internship, what would you say?
Yeah. That's such an interesting question. And I feel like I see my younger brothers go through it. They're like, I need an internship, like da 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 da. And I guess because I didn't grow up in that world, like I didn't know that I was gonna be a like 9 to 5 corporate baddie. So like that was
Mm-hmm.
not in my brain in college. In college, I was like thinking more about like performing like live
Yeah.
theater. So honestly, I don't know because in my journey, like, yes, I did this internship that was actually kind of like not in the social media world at all. It was really just like being an extra pair of hands around the production company. But something I did do consistently throughout like high school and college was I was a social like media ambassador for the Roger Rees Awards, which is
Okay.
a theater award show that happens in New York. And if you win, you go to the Jimmy Awards. And I won that, and then they would invite us back and like kind of like use us to like take their social
Mm-hmm.
media content, but I ended up like really enjoying that, so that was like something that I could put on my resume. And then when I decided I wanted to like maybe get into social media more seriously, I did an internship for a couple months before I did my job is now. But honestly, from my job now, I've learned that really like unless as long as you find the right company, like people really don't care about those things. They care more
Mm-hmm.
about like who you are, like your ideas? Like, are you creative? Like, what do you bring, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Talking about your
Yeah.
job now, you work as a full-time content creator at Coach.
Yeah.
How did you get a job at such like a big company? Was it through like network or did you just like cold apply?
It is through networking. Actually, both of like, and that is, something that my dad has preached to me since I was a young girl is networking. He was like, half of the world is about who you know. Like, as
Yeah.
sad as that is, it's like a very true thing. And so, my dad, early in high school, like when I was getting into the theater world, like, would have me network and I'd be so uncomfortable. I'd be like,
Hmm.
Dad, like, don't make me do this. But truly, it taught me to like use the connections I have and to build connections. So my first internship in social media, the first marketing company that I interned for was a network with somebody I went to college with, and she had heard me talking on the podcast I have about like wanting to explore this world more seriously, and she helped me get an interview, and luckily I'd gotten the job. And then what most people maybe not know about my job for Coach is actually a client of VaynerMedia. And if you know Gary Vee, Gary
Hmm.
Vee owns VaynerMedia, and VaynerMedia is a marketing agency that works with Fortune 500 companies, and we do their marketing. They do Super Bowl ads. We run their social media. So Coach is a client for them. And so back in the spring of last year, my best friend's boyfriend works for Vayner. He works on the ad sales side, and we're talking about like social media stuff, and he's like, you should do this, they call it a residency instead of an internship, um at Vayner, and be a creator. And I was like, what is that? What do you mean, like a creator? Like, what does
Hmm.
that mean? And so I was kind of going in like with no expectations, but it turned out to be exactly what I wanted, which was a company that was keeping up with trends and like in real time posting. Every week I'm concepting ideas and you see them out the next week. It is so cool. And how I got on the Coach team was just kind of luck. They put me on the Zappos team first, and then they needed some extra hands on Coach. And so I ended up doing my first piece of content about like kind of like a vlog style of a girl
Hmm.
like going to buy her first like work bag, and it did really well. And then they wanted me to stay on after that. So that's kind of how I got on that team. And I'm so lucky and fortunate to be on the Coach team because like I'm absolutely obsessed with it.
Hmm. And what does your job entail of like on the daily? Like, is it always just creating content or is there anything else that happens?
No, there's a ton of different things that happen. So not only like are we creating content weekly for like their TikTok, Instagram, threads, we may throw X back in there, we
Hmm.
have no idea. And usually like that, like on a normal week where you don't have any other responsibilities, like for me as somebody who's like more video heavy and they know that's like kind of where my
Yeah.
strong suit lies, I will usually be making like 4 to 5 videos a week. And we go to the Coach store, we film our concepts, and then we bring them all together. But we also CM. If you ever get a Coach comment, it could be from me. I think it's so funny. Sometimes I'm like, commenting as them. So that's kind of cool. And I really love the CM world. I think it's so fun to engage with the community like that.
Yeah.
And then recently I've been moving into more like concepting for their campaign. So like when they have photo shoots, being behind the scenes and getting content for them. And that's been really, really cool.
Yeah. What would you say has been your absolute like favorite part so far?
Oh my God, that's so hard because I really do enjoy so many aspects of it. Um, I think just like getting to be creative and like getting
Hmm.
like yes, the schedule is the same, but every video is so different and it
Yeah.
tells a different story in a different way. And I think that's so like interesting. Every week needing to find something new to connect to their audience is like really cool to me.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah.
And going off all the content that you do, you also have a podcast with your friend
Yeah.
Audrey, which is called the Completely Fucking Clueless Podcast. And that's actually how I found you. I don't even remember how, to be
Yeah.
honest, but I know it's through the podcast somehow. Um,
Yeah.
when did you two decide that you wanted to start a podcast together, and how did it all like come to life?
Yeah. So after college, like a big piece of advice that has really made an impact in my life is somebody, I was working a theater job and somebody had said to me, once you leave here and you're going off into the real world, have something that is creatively like for yourself.
Yeah.
You're auditioning all the time, people are rejecting you. Like, you need to have something that you can go home to and you don't need to hear no from, like that you can just like show up with your creativity. And I had always loved podcasting. I started listening to podcasts because of the Skinny Confidential. A
Hmm.
YouTuber I had watched in like 2019 had suggested their podcast, and I became obsessed with like listening to podcasts. And so I'd always kind of like wanted to start my own, but
Yeah.
in college just didn't have the time. And so after my first summer post grad, I reached out to Audrey because we've always had very similar like aesthetics. And I was like, would you like maybe want to start a podcast? And, luckily she said yes. And at the beginning, it was going to actually like be more like theater based and about theater. And then our parents, and I'm really again grateful for this advice, encouraged us to like open it up a bit more. And then we just started thinking about like the period of life that we were in and feeling so uncertain. And I personally also have an anxiety disorder, so I've always dealt with struggling with uncertainty. And I think something that's a constant through your life is uncertainty. Like, no matter
Yeah.
what age you're at, you're experiencing something new. And so I just saw an opportunity in that, and we did. And that's how we came up with the podcast. We decided to take it slow. We took it like week by week. We would meet like once a week and go through different aspects. And we spent around like 6 to 7 months planning it. We didn't plan to spend that much time on it. We ended up, it
Hmm.
was the phase where Omicron hit. We got pushed back a while. So we launched it in March of 2022. So we're coming up on like 2 years of the podcast like fully being out there.
And how did you guys come up with the name? Because for me, that was like my hardest part because like each time I was like, oh, like this name sounds good. And then I go look and someone has it. And I was like, so like it was such a struggle because I'm not like creative in that aspect of coming up with like
Mhm.
random names. So how did you guys come up with it?
I feel that that was like that is like such a hard part about
Hmm.
it. Um, I think like I literally still have the document that we like found the name on. I think we just started like shooting out different ideas because as soon as we found out what we wanted the theme to be, we were like, okay, like here are some things that we commonly say, like, what the fuck am I doing with my life? Like, and we
Hmm.
just like kind of kept writing them down and writing it out. And I remember, I think it took us like 4 hours to think of the name because you're right. Between like, you have a great idea and then you look it up and somebody already has it,
Yeah.
and not to mention sometimes they have the name and they haven't posted in years, but you're still like,
Yeah.
I don't know. But we came to the word clueless, and we were like, oh my god, the Clueless movie, like we could like maybe tie in like some of the colors and things from there. And then we came to completely clueless because of the C's. And then Audrey was like, we got to add a curse word for a little punch. So
Hmm.
that's how we came up with the name. It was a hard process though. Like, it is really hard to figure out a name
Yeah.
and something that's catchy and interesting and grabbing. It's hard.
Yeah, for sure. And
Yeah.
how do you make sure that your podcast kind of stands out from others? Because now there's so many different podcasts and it's kind of hard to make yours stand out sometimes. So how do you kind of make yours stand out?
100%. It's so hard. I mean, that's something Audrey and I struggle with all the time is like, you open TikTok and there's another like 20 something podcast out
Yeah.
there. I think something that is different, at least about Completely Fucking Clueless, is that we are coming from the lens of like two queer women. We're coming from the
Hmm.
lens of two girls, like Audrey's like mid size, I'm plus size. And so that is a different lens. And I feel like a lot of these 20 something podcasts are focused on. I feel like you're usually seeing the same body types,
Yeah.
heterosexuality, and that is amazing, but not everybody in their 20s looks like that, dates like that, is like that. And so I think something that's always been important to us is like making sure that people like that the minority groups that we represent, like feel represented by our podcast. And then just like the details, I think. It's something that I love about my co-host is she is so detail oriented, especially when it comes to like our photos. Like she
Mm-hmm.
always knows like the coolest props to get. So just thinking about like who you are as a person and how you can like put that into the small details of your podcast, I think is like really important in
Mm-hmm.
standing out, especially like if you're thinking of like me with pink, like everybody
Yeah.
loves pink, right? But just figuring out how you can make it a little different than that person,
Yeah.
the other podcaster, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And your podcast
Yeah.
has a mix of solo episodes, so you and Audrey, and then you also have guests. How do you go about picking
Yeah.
the guests that you want on?
So usually it is us like going through TikTok and being like this would be a great person. And usually like a great person in our eyes is somebody that is already like talking about their life online. We've really seen that the people who are really great interview guests are the people that are speaking to their camera online, because
Yeah.
that means you know that they are like really willing to talk. I think like it can be really hard to get a guest that is just like, because then you're like,
Yeah.
oh no, like I really like need you to talk. So when we see people that are talking to their cameras online, like that is like our first check, in
Mm-hmm.
knowing that they would probably make a good guest because they're willing to speak online. Something else is like we just love seeing people that are going through like uncertain moments, uncertain
Yeah.
times in their lives, or even sharing like their journey as like somebody in their 20s. We also love to get again like representation. We love
Mm-hmm.
having like queer people on the podcast, because that is something that's important and something that we felt was missing in the 20 something space was like,
Yeah.
hey, like we're two bisexual women. And I love listening to the most popular podcasts out there, but none of those people are queer and really talking about what it's like to be a 20 something that is, dating as a queer person or have a relationship as a queer person or just like living as a queer person. So I think that's another like strong criteria for us too.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah.
totally feel that, especially because I'm also bisexual and I talk about
Yeah.
it online, but not as much. And like my content doesn't really revolve around it. But you're right. Like a lot of like the bigger creators are mostly like heterosexual. So
Right.
there's like not that representation. I mean, maybe there's obviously a few of them, but I feel like they don't get the same
Sure.
kind of spotlight as white
Right.
heterosexual people.
100%. And that's something that bothered me because I was like, I love these podcasts and I don't fault these people. Like they're not, it's not their fault that they're straight,
Yeah.
but I was like, I just wish that I could turn this on and not feel like, oh, like we're talking about boyfriend and girlfriends and what you would get your boyfriend for Christmas, what you get your girlfriend. What about me, who has like a non-binary partner? Like, where's my thing? So I don't talk about it as much on my TikTok, not because I like don't want to. I just like haven't really, but I talk about it a lot on my podcast, in that longer form because I feel like it's easier to like express myself in that
Yeah.
long form way. Yeah,
Yeah. Talking about sexuality, you do talk about it
yeah,
a lot on your podcast and stuff.
yeah,
Um, how did you kind of come to know and embrace your sexuality? Because I know you've posted online too that that was something that you did struggle with, and it is hard.
yeah.
So how did that happen for you?
Yeah, it was really, really hard. Something I share a lot online is that my partner, Olivia, was my first kiss when I was 12 years old. And as excited as I was for that first kiss, it was also like so scary. And for so long, I was like, oh my gosh, my first kiss wasn't with like a cis man. Like, that's so
Mm-hmm.
weird. Like it was hard. And I went like a whole decade without really recognizing my sexuality. I think it was COVID, honestly, that really pushed me to be like, oh my God, the world could just like drop at like any point. This is the time for me to discover and explore who I am. And so when I started talking with my partner again, I was like, I don't want this to like be behind closed doors. Like, I want to come out to my friends and family. And it was hard. It still is hard. It's not perfect. And you're coming out all the time, especially as like a femme presenting woman. Like,
Yeah.
not a lot of people look at me and think that I'm bisexual. So it's definitely hard. And I would advise anybody to do it on your own time. Like, if you're not feeling ready, that's okay. Like, you're not ready. If you are ready, more power to you. Like, you go out there and live your life. This is your sexuality, it's your decision. You don't have to come out if you don't want to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I feel like being bisexual too is a whole other thing because there's the
Yes.
whole I'm bisexual and dating a man, so it's like
Yeah.
people view you and they're like, okay, like you're probably just saying you're bisexual to like be trendy or something like that when like that's obviously
Right.
not the case. But then if you're dating a woman, people are like, oh, like you're lesbian. And then it's still like
100%.
it makes me I can like go on about this forever, but it's just so annoying because it happens a lot with people within the community too, which is like the most frustrating part. And it's always like, oh,
Right.
like just pick a side, and it's like that's not how it works.
No, 100%. When I came out, and my parents were like, so, like, do you feel like you're bisexual or whatever? And I waited a long time to put a label on it, but
Hmm.
I truly was like, no, like, I am bisexual. Like, yes, I like women and like non-binary people, but like I also like cis men too. And like, because for a while I felt the same way. I was like, do I need to like just strictly stay in this like, one side of it? But that's not how I feel on the
Hmm.
inside. So like, I totally understand where you're coming from, and it is such a like weird thing that goes on in this community.
Yeah, no, yeah, 100%. I feel like it's never gonna
Yeah,
change, sadly. Or maybe it
no.
will, but in the future, like that I'm on this planet, I don't think it will. Um, but talking about mental health too, because you did say that you do
Yeah.
have anxiety, and I also have anxiety, and so I know how that feels like. How do you make sure to protect your mental health in such a fast-paced society?
Yeah, it is hard. It's funny. There's a new creative director on my team, and I was telling him about all the things that I do, and he's like, "How
Mm-hmm.
do you balance all of this?" And I was like, "That is a great question, sir." Um,
Yeah.
I unfortunately went through a really tough time in 2019 to like 2021, like really tough. I left school, sought out treatment because I was so burnt out that I was just like so depressed, and it was really, really hard. And so I think that time in my life taught me like, okay, like you can be passionate, you can work hard, and you need to prioritize like yourself too, because
Yeah.
or else like all of this hard work is like you're just going to burn out, like, and you're going to be totally shut down and not want to do any of it. So now I try and make sure that I am, like you said, like protecting some of myself. So, like, making sure that there's at least one day a week where, like, I'm not filming anything, no job, no myself, no podcast. I really try and make sure that, like, one day every weekend, like Saturday, Sunday, like, there is downtime.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's not always possible. So, like, really making sure I'm like, okay, like, these amount of hours are going to me like being with friends, being with my partner, being with family, or like, for example, even last night, I was literally saying to my partner, I was like, I have a free evening and I feel like I should like do this, that, and the other thing, but I just want to like veg. And they're like,
Yeah.
you should veg. Like, I get it, like there's that pressure, but like you need to relax too. And so I like relaxed and now I feel rejuvenated. So I do think it is really important to, as best as you can, find a balance, even if it's just like a couple hours in your day.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And talking about fast paced, you live in one of the most fast paced cities, honestly. What would you
Yeah.
say is your favorite thing about living in New York?
Oh, I love New York, even though it can be like so gross
Mm-hmm.
sometimes. What do I love about it? I mean, I kind of said this earlier. I love the restaurants. I love like
Yeah.
exploring that. There's nothing I love more than like going out to dinner with friends, good talk, good food, good drinks. And there is a part of the fast-paced nature that I do love about it. Like everybody is kind of like hustling and working and going towards something. And I feel like when I'm in, at least being in New York, it just feels like I'm in the center of it. Like there's so many opportunities like available to me. Like, sometimes I'll get invited to like events and I'm like that's so cool. And it's
Yeah.
because it's happening like in New York. So that is one thing I do really love about like being in a city and a bustling area.
Hmm. And what has that
Yeah.
transition been like? Because I know you recently moved from your family home to the city on your
Yeah.
own. You do have a roommate though, I think. But
Yes.
how has that
Yeah.
whole
She's
transition been?
Yeah, it's been pretty good. Yeah, my roommate Liz, she and I went to high school together,
Okay.
and now we are roommates. The transition has been like some easy, some hard. I think the fortunate part was like I have grown up outside of New York City since I
Hmm.
was like what 7 years old, and I started coming into the city by myself like when I was 13. So I have known this city like very well for a long time. So there wasn't that aspect of like needing to figure out like where things are, what I
Yeah.
like around here because I already had that. I think the hardest thing was just like sort of readjusting to living on my own because I hadn't lived alone since college, which was like 2.5 years ago. So just like readjusting to like needing to pick up after yourself, like what it means to be a roommate.
Yeah.
Honestly, the most annoying thing about like where I live is just like my commute and things
Yeah.
like that. So just like adjusting to those small things,
Hmm.
but I've been loving it so far. I love my apartment. So
Yeah. And what advice would you give to someone who's looking to move out soon?
yeah, specifically for New York City or just in general?
I think in general.
Okay. In general, I would say know your pros and cons of what you want in like an apartment specifically, because I think that makes the process a lot easier. Like
Yeah.
something that my roommate and I always said, we were like, natural light. That is our top thing that we want in an apartment. So everywhere we were looking, everything that we looked at, we were like, what is the light status on this? And then we also had certain like non-negotiables and things like that. So I definitely think like maybe a non-negotiable list, not a pros and cons list. Like having the list of the things that you really want and really don't care about, like
Yeah.
is important. Um, and then I could also like advise like maybe having a little bit of money saved up. Like I lived at home for 2.5 years, and it was sort of intentional to save up some money, especially if you're moving to a city that's expensive. Like it
Yeah.
feels nice to know that there is money in my savings in case like, anything were to happen. So
Yeah.
yeah.
For sure. The last one of my podcast, I asked people on Instagram to ask you questions, and I picked
Oh,
two of my
cool.
favorite ones. So the first one is, are there any self-care practices you incorporated into your daily routine?
Ooh, self-care. I wish I was better at self-care.
Yeah. It's hard.
It's gonna be hard. Yeah. Something I've been doing lately though, like two things I've been doing is an ice roller. Like I know it's so simple, but just like the way it feels on your skin, and I feel like it really like calms me down a lot. Is that. And then I've been seeing it all over TikTok, and then my mom started doing it. So I was like, I'll hop onto this train too, is like the cherry nighttime mocktail.
I've seen it.
I
I've never
got like,
tried it.
yeah, it's actually really good. I do the pure tart cherry juice, and then I get a raspberry rose poppy, and it like cuts the tartness. It's so good. And I like it like a sweet treat at night. So it just like gives me something to look forward to.
I love that. And then the
Yeah.
last one is, what are some New York City gems you think more people should know about?
Ooh, okay. First one that comes to my head is this, and maybe this is not a gem, but I think it is because I don't think like people talk about it as much as it should be. Is this restaurant on the Upper East Side called Uva?
Okay.
I've been to Carbone, and I think Uva is like so much like better. Carbone is really fun for like the vibe, but Uva just like has the best food, and it's also right by the Met. And another like thing about the Met is like make sure you go up to the rooftop, especially like in the spring or summer. It's beautiful up there. I'm trying to think if there are any more hidden gems. If you're queer, I mean, I feel like you would know Henrietta Hudson. It's like a really one of the only like female centric queer bars. Um, I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Those are like the top couple that come to my mind.
Awesome. Well, I definitely will be checking them
Yeah.
out the next time I come.
Yeah. You
Uh,
gotta go to Uva. Gotta get the gnocchi. The gnocchi
okay.
is so good.
I will remember that. But yeah, that's all
Yeah.
I had for you today. So thank you so much again for coming on.
Amazing.
Before you leave, do you want to shout out any of your socials where people can find you, where they can follow you?
Yeah, sure. So you can find me on Instagram and on TikTok at Sarah Alice Liddy. And then if you're looking for another podcast, I have a podcast with my friend called Completely Fucking Clueless. And you can find us on Instagram at Completely Fucking Clueless or on YouTube and TikTok at Completely FCKING Clueless. They censored us.
Oh my God. Well, thank you so much again for coming on.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Thank you guys so much for listening to this episode. I really do hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget to go follow Sarah on all her socials. Go show her some love. Go show her some support. Go follow the podcast. If you want to follow me, please don't be shy. You can follow me either at Behind the Girl Boss or at It's Amanda Wan. Check out my YouTube channel. It's Amanda Wan. The podcast is also on there. Leave a review, rating, follow, subscribe, all the things. And I will see you guys in the next episode. Thank you for listening.